Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. And in this video, I'm going to explain some basic spreadsheet modeling, and I will show you how to use some spreadsheet application like what if analysis. If you're new to Excel or you're a system analysis student just like me, then this video is definitely for you. Let's get started. In this introductory video, I'm going to explain how to enter and format data, create simple formulas, and use range functions. This will then lay the foundation for the more complex topics. Spreadsheet is a computerized table of vertical columns labeled with letters and horizontal rows labeled with numbers, with each particular point in the actual table called a cell. Now, lots of different spreadsheets are available, including Excel inside my Microsoft Office. There's also a Google spreadsheet which is available for free and which runs online or as an app. And the spreadsheet I'm running here is Microsoft Excel. Alright, so let's create a simple spreadsheet. And to do that, I'm going to cell A1 and I'm going to enter a text label which is going to be coffee orders. This is going to be a spreadsheet all about ordering coffee flavors. Now we're also going to put in some labels for the headers of certain columns. Information we're putting in which are going to be flavors and price and quantity. And I also enter some basic bits of text and data to give us something to work with. So I'll put that in quickly and then we can look at how we format it to make it look better. There we are. I've entered some basic data, flavors you might actually order for a coffee shop, some prices and some quantities. Now that's how the basic data's gone in, but we can make it look a bit better. The column isn't wide enough, so I can take my arrow up to the middle of the gap between columns A and B, then click and drag, and I can make this column wider to actually fit in that label. I can also do the same thing at column B, where the column's a bit too wide, and I can do it again on column C, so things start to look a little bit neater. And I'll just format the text labels to justify the right, so it will look better. Now I'm going to click on cell B3 containing the word price. Click and drag to also highlight a range of cells B3 and C3. And then I'll go up to the toolbar and click on the right justify to line things up. I think I might also like my labels to be in italic. So again, I click on cell A3, click and drag across, and click on the italics icon again from the menu bar. I want to do here is to make these numbers appears as currency. So I'm going to click and drag down this range of numbers. You'll see they're not all particularly lined up at the moment. The decimal points don't line up and they aren't indicated to be a currency even though they're in a price column. So I'm going to right click to bring up a menu, which means I can then format cells now. Spreadsheets have lots of different formats available. You can see down here which number, percent, currency, date, time, all sort of things. But here I'm going to select currency. And you see it's by default giving me peso sign because I'm in the Philippines. But it would be different if you were in another part of the world. I click OK and it's formatted things up as currency. And there, that's the start of a spreadsheet. We put some data, we did a little bit of formatting, and tidied things up. So I think it's time to get this spreadsheet to do a bit of work. So I'm going to put in another column here, column D. Column D is going to be a total sales column. I'll put total in there, then I'll go up to the top and I will click on italic and click on the justify icon right. And I also take size up to keep things neat. As we're going along now, the total cost of buying coffee flavors, here's going to be the price multiplied by quantity. So it's going to be what's in B4 times what in C4. So I could go to this cell here, cell D4, and press equals. Equals tells the spreadsheet we're going to enter a formula. And I could actually enter B4 multiplied by C4 and enter that would work. However, I could do that in easier way. If I double click on that cell, you will see it shows me the formula B4 multiplied C4 and it's highlighted with colors for two different cells it's coming from. Another way is I'm just going to delete that what's in that and press equal again. But this time, I'm going to actually click on cell P4 and then enter my multiply sign and then click on cell C4 and you see the spreadsheets put in cells for me. I just need to press enter and we get the same result. But if I had a very long list, that would take me a lot of time. So what I do is, we could have done probably the best one is to click on the cell we want to copy and go to the bottom right corner. And you see there's a tiny box. And if I move my arrow over that, and if I click and drag, move that down, it highlights the range and it dropped in the formula. So there it is. Okay, so now let's make our spreadsheet do even more work. I'm going to put in another text label here called total cost of order, which of course you would want to know. So I'll enter that in there. I'll again be neat and just put a little bit of space in there to make it look nicer. And I go over to cell D10 where I want my total to be. Now, one way to do this total will be to press equals and then to click on D4 and then go plus D5 plus D6 plus D7 plus D8 and enter and that would work perfectly well. However, that's a long formula to enter and we had hundreds and hundreds of rows. It would take a very long time. So I'll escape that out and I'll delete what I put in there and I'll use what's called a range function. A function that works across a range of cells. And the one I'm going to use is the most common in the spreadsheet, which is called sum. So I'm going to press equals and sum. And then the format here is to open a bracket and to give it a range of cells. So here I actually want to sum from D4 to D8. I could click on D4 and drag down to D8. And when I close my bracket and press enter, it will give me exactly the result. So that's shown how we can do an automatic sum inside this spreadsheet. And you see if I change, say, one of these numbers, say that 120 was actually 110. It would alter the figures, and that's the beauty of spreadsheets. Once you got your data in, you can change one figure, and everything will change. But for now, I put back to 120 because I like 120 and there's all sort of other range function available. So I'll go down here and I'll write, say, average price. What if we want to know the average price of something here? Again, I'll keep things tidy. I'm trying to keep things on screen so you can see things easily. I could go down here and I could enter equals average, open up bracket, and I might want to do an average of these prices. There and bracket and enter. And that show me the average price. So that is how to use range functions to do things like sum up cells or get an average figure. Okay, so far things have been going very well, but as you know, with computing things don't always go well, and you have to know how to get out of these difficulties. So let's pretend that maybe in here we got 4,800 pesos in our, I mean 4,800 in our order rather than just 48. And suddenly you can see the total cost of order. This frequently happen. So if you get hash symbols in a cell in the spreadsheets, it just means that cell can't display the figure. So rather than giving you a bit of the figure, which would be misleading, it tells you that you can't fit in. So all we have to do here is go up to the gap between column D and E and drag out and eventually would fit in there. So don't worry, just widen your columns and all your numbers will come back. Now that we have covered the basics, let's now talk about what if analysis. Say I'm taking a class in a school and I'm not doing very well so far. Luckily, if I get a high enough grade on the final exam, there's a chance I may be able to pass the class. The question is, what grade do I need to get on the exam to raise my average to at least 80? We can find out using a feature called what if analysis. What if analysis allows you to fill in missing information based on the data you already have. Right now, all I know are the grades I got on the first four assignments: 75, 85, 75, and 70. Before we do our analysis, we need to figure out my current average by adding a formula or function in this cell. In this case, each activity is weighted equally, so we can calculate the number we need using the average function. To get the most out of what if analysis, you do need to be fairly comfortable with formulas and functions. Luckily, this one is pretty simple. We just type an equal sign and then average. Next, we need to select all the cells, even the empty cells for the final exam grade. If we don't, it won't calculate the average for all 5 assignments. Looks like we're done. Now I'm just going to press enter. And now we can see my current average. Unfortunately, it's not high enough, but we knew that was going to happen. Now we can move on to the next step using a feature called goal seek to figure out what we need on the final exam. Goal seek is a type of what if analysis that basically lets you work backwards in order to find a missing value. It starts with the result you want, then it calculates whatever input is needed to get you there. To begin, select the cell that contains your formula or function, in our case, B8. Then go to the Data tab and click the What If Analysis command. There are actually several different types of what if analysis, including Scenario Manager and Data Table. But in this case, we're going to use Goal Seek. A dialog box will appear where you can set the parameters for the information you need. In our example, we want to set cell B8, that's our selected cell, to a value of 80 by changing the cell that contains our missing value, and that's going to be B6. When you're done, click OK. And goal seek will take a minute to see if it can find a solution. Based on the message here, it looks like we were successful. So we're going to click OK. And now we can see the results we were looking for in the final exam cell. So I guess I need to make a 95 on the exam in order to get 80. It's going to be tough, but I think I can do it. At least now I know thanks to the work we did with what if analysis. It might take some practice to get the hang of the feature on your own, but it's a great way to figure out unknown values in your worksheet.